The cold rain hammered against the glass windows of the towering skyscraper as Ethan Cole stood in the lobby, clutching a worn leather resume folder in one hand and a soaked teddy bear in the other. His heart pounded like a drum fighting to be heard against the storm of life crashing over him. He had one shot left, one shot to save the only person who mattered, his little daughter. The receptionist barely glanced at him when she told him to wait, but he barely noticed. He just kept repeating in his mind that failure was not an option today. Because if this didn't work, he didn't know how they would survive another month. He stared at his trembling hands and thought about everything he had lost: his wife, his home, his dreams. Ethan had been a respected engineer once. But now? Now he was just a single dad fighting against the world before the world swallowed him whole. Before the story goes deeper, please like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe every person deserves kindness and a second chance in life. Your support means everything. Ethan finally heard his name called, and he walked into the conference room with his chin lifted, trying to stand tall even as his clothes still held the chill of the rain. Across the polished table sat 4 interviewers in clean suits with clean smiles, the kind that judged before they understood. They scanned his resume, eyes narrowing when they noticed the employment gap, the different job titles: janitor, delivery driver, night clerk, and the missing stability they wanted to see. When they asked about his late wife, his voice wavered, and they dismissed it as weakness. They questioned his ability, his consistency, his focus, all because he was trying to raise a 6-year-old without support. They didn't see a fighter, they only saw a risk. When they stood to thank him for coming, he already knew what that false politeness meant, and his stomach dropped lower than he thought possible. Rejection again, a punch to a heart. Already exhausted from being bruised every single day. They returned his resume like a useless piece of paper and guided him toward the exit. He walked back into the hallway, his vision blurring from tears he refused to let fall. His daughter's face flashed in his mind, her hopeful eyes whenever he promised, "Daddy's going to find a good job soon." How would he tell her that he failed again? As he passed a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only," he heard 2 employees speaking frantically behind it. Something in their tone made him pause: urgency, panic, desperation. He hesitated only a moment before gently pushing the door open. Inside, a group of tech developers surrounded a massive holographic screen with a complicated blueprint displayed across it. They stared hopelessly as red alerts flashed over the design of the company's newest innovation, a life-saving medical device worth millions in investment, a launch planned in days, failure not an option. The device software had crashed and corrupted beyond repair, and no one could trace the problem. Ethan recognized the algorithm structure instantly. His engineering instincts, buried under a year of survival jobs, kicked in like a spark reigniting. He noticed a tiny overlooked code error, small enough to hide from normal detection, but big enough to destroy everything. Without thinking, he stepped forward, explaining what he saw and what needed to be done. They looked at him like he was crazy, the guy who just got rejected, dripping rainwater on the expensive floor. But he grabbed the spare tablet, his fingers moving at lightning speed as muscle memory guided him through, rewriting, restoring, and stabilizing the code. Within seconds, the screen glowed green again. Success. $1 billion disaster avoided. The room went silent. Then the CEO walked in. Alexander Grant, a legend in the tech world, stared at the screen and then at the stranger who had just saved his company. Ethan stood awkwardly, the teddy bear still tucked under his arm, his hair wild from the rain. The CEO asked who he was. One of the developers admitted he was just a rejected applicant. The CEO studied Ethan, noticing not just skill in his eyes, but years of hardship, strength, and humility. He asked Ethan to walk with him. They sat in the CEO's office, a space filled with awards, models of inventions, and frames of news headlines, praising success after success. Meanwhile, Ethan felt like an intruder in a world he once belonged to, but now seemed too far to reach. The CEO asked why Ethan applied for a job far below his skill level. Ethan explained, with quiet dignity, how he lost his wife to a sudden illness, how he used all his savings to treat her, how he quit his job when no one understood why he needed flexible hours to care for a grieving child. He spoke of nights spent worrying, days working odd jobs, and the promise he made to his daughter that he would build their life back up brick by brick. The CEO didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. When Ethan finished, there was only understanding in his eyes, the kind that comes from having battled loss too. The CEO had once lost a brother. Today's crisis brought old memories of helplessness rushing back. He saw something in Ethan, not just brilliance but resilience. He called the hiring managers to the office. They looked terrified, knowing already that they had made a mistake. But Ethan didn't glare at them, didn't hold bitterness. He simply stood there, clutching the teddy bear like a tiny reminder of what really mattered. The CEO then did something that changed everything. He offered Ethan not just a job, but the lead role on the very project he rescued. A salary bigger than any Ethan had expected, flexibility to be there for his daughter, and support to rebuild the life he lost. Ethan froze, unsure if he heard correctly, but the CEO handed him a handwritten business card, a genuine smile replacing corporate pretenses, and told him that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they carry teddy bears. When Ethan left the building that day, he stepped into the sunlight breaking through the clouds. The rain had cleared. His shoes were still wet, his clothes still wrinkled, but his heart burned bright with hope. He bought his daughter her favorite ice cream before picking her up from school, and when she ran into his arms, giggling with joy, he realized that for the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Weeks passed, and Ethan proved himself like never before. His coworkers admired his intelligence and kindness. His daughter flourished, no longer worried about grown-up problems, and every day he placed fresh flowers at his wife's grave, promising her quietly that he was doing his best for both of them. Months later, the medical device launched successfully, saving countless lives. During the press conference, the CEO shared the story behind the breakthrough, a story not of prestige and wealth, but of a single father who refused to give up. Cameras flashed as the world learned Ethan's name. His daughter watched proudly from the front row, hugging the teddy bear he once carried into that interview. She knew her father was a hero long before anyone else did. The same hiring managers who once rejected him now celebrated him, but Ethan never treated them with anything but respect. He understood something deeper. People sometimes fail to see potential through the noise of assumptions. But that never means potential isn't there. Ethan bought a small home with a yard, where his daughter planted daisies, saying they were her mommy's favorite flowers. Every night they ate dinner at a real dining table, something they hadn't had in years. And every morning he woke up not to fear but to gratitude. Even the CEO changed. He created a new hiring policy to give second chances to those who needed them most. Parents, veterans, the overlooked and underestimated. Because a brilliant mind can come from anywhere. And a strong heart is a gift forged only by battle. Ethan often spoke at seminars and universities, sharing his story, a message of hope to anyone standing in a lobby of their own, rain dripping off their dreams. He told them that rejection wasn't the end. Sometimes it was the path that led them where they were meant to be. If this story touched your heart and reminded you never to give up on yourself or others, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us inspire more people around the world. Special request, comment below. Second chances matter. Let's show the world that kindness can change lives. In the end, Ethan realized that fate had not been cruel. It had been preparing him. Every hardship, every tear, every door slammed in his face had pushed him toward the moment when everything finally aligned. Pain had carved space inside him for something beautiful to grow.